Welcome to Comment with me, George Galloway, here on Press TV, still the voice of the voiceless. Comment is the great conversation, the big debate even, but it can only be either if you join in. That's why, above all, I need your telephone calls. The number to dial is 44-208-601-4555. You call us, we'll call you back. Establish a clear line, and remember, if you get on the television with me, the volume on your television has to be down at 0, or I'll have to press swiftly on, because no one will understand either of us. Or you can SMS the show on 447800008066, and the best of those will come up here on the comment wall. Ditto, emails, comment@presstv.co.uk is the address for that. Ditto, again, on Twitter at comment_PressTV. Tonight, we're asking, has Britain turned blue, or is it only an illusion? And how can the Tories, with just under 37% of those who voted, but less than a quarter of all the British people, stop UK poverty? In fact, they're not even pretending they're going to stop UK poverty. They are going to unleash now a blizzard of austerity. The £30 billion in cuts that Labour and the Conservatives all signed up to before the election are merely the top line. The bottom line is much, much larger. There'll be cuts in benefit, there'll be freezes in pay, there'll be massive cuts in public expenditure, there will be huge privatisations of things even Margaret Thatcher never dreamt of, and of course the good old security agenda. David Cameron has now unleashed a new concept on the British people. This is the austerity Britain as it's looking, as Cameron is back now in number 10 with less than a quarter of the British population behind him. But I was going to mention the security agenda, which has frightened the horses in many, many quarters. We have become inured to wave after wave of anti-Muslim legislation from the British Parliament, but David Cameron has just announced, together with Theresa May, the Interior Secretary, the Home Secretary, that even those who are acting within the law can be and will be closed down by the government. The state is going to interfere in the lawful actions of British subjects. Subjects, of course, because we're not citizens like other people in the world. British subjects, even when they're acting within the law, will feel the full force of the new legislation and edicts that the government is bringing in. There are many people, maybe I'll be one of them, who are going to have to submit their tweets and their Facebook posts to the police before they can be published. There are no doubt going to be efforts to close down many other avenues of expression. So Britain is in the grip of austerity winter still. There are millions unemployed. There are millions more in poverty even though they are employed. Pensioners who've shivered through the last winter will not find next winter any warmer. The food bank take in the British economy has reached undreamt of levels. Hundreds of thousands of people are having to depend on charity food in order to feed their families, in order to stay alive. David Cameron rules for the few, and he rules over the many, even though hardly any voted for him. 24% of the British people voted for him. Far more people voted against him, but the vagaries of the British electoral system give him the Gatling gun of a parliamentary majority. But it's a very small majority. I've sat in many parliaments with small majorities. And believe me, the tide will turn, even inside the Conservative Party. His majority of 12 will be whittled away with by-elections actuarially certain to occur, and will probably occur as much in Tory constituencies as in any others. The 12 will whittle away, and inside the Conservative Party, popular reaction to the Tories' wicked policies will undoubtedly begin to destabilise and nerve Conservative MPs who will rebel more and more often. That's my experience. I experienced it throughout the John Major period of government, and I'm certain that it's going to happen to David Cameron too. So that's the first question. How can the Tories, with less than 37% support of those who voted, less than a quarter of those who could have, stop UK poverty? And I'm afraid the other question, we have to return to the miserable situation in Yemen, a humanitarian crisis that is being largely ignored in the so-called mainstream media and by the Western political class. Thousands of Yemenis have died, tens of thousands have been maimed. The death and destruction is becoming biblical in proportions. But guess what? The United Nations must take a very substantial part of the blame, because in the past we've grown inured, to use a word I used earlier, inured to the fact that the United Nations was unable to step forward and pick up its responsibility. When Gaza was being reduced to rubble, for obvious reasons, the United Nations was powerless, even when its own personnel and facilities were being destroyed in the bombardment. But in Yemen, the United Nations has moved from just being useless to being complicit. Complicit in the deaths of thousands of people, the maiming of tens of thousands, and the daily bombardment by the dictatorship of Saudi Arabia, planned from a cell set up for the purpose by the United States of America, appears to have the United Nations support. Certainly not a finger, not a whisper of condemnation has come forward, even when Saudi armed forces are turning back aid ships and aid aeroplanes, bringing vitally needed humanitarian aid to the people in the Arab world's poorest country, one of the poorest countries in the whole world, who on top of their poverty are now suffering relentless military aggression from their neighbour, and yet the United Nations has nothing to say, indeed is effectively giving a diplomatic thumbs up, a diplomatic green light to the continued massacre of the people of Yemen. So I'm asking tonight, how much is the United Nations to blame for Yemen's humanitarian crisis? These are the two subjects. They are different in that one is domestic and one is international, though the international one, of course, leads back home as well, because the British government and the official opposition are fully supporting the Saudi-led operation against Yemen. But it's the domestic that's going to be first on the agenda. Lever in Manchester, always worth hearing, wants to talk about that. Lever, welcome to the show.
Always a pleasure, George.
Nice to talk to you again. What do you think?
Well, I just wanted to say that on Thursday night, I actually stayed up through the night, Thursday night, Friday morning, watching the results. And at 10 o'clock in the morning, I actually started crying like a baby. And my wife said to me, "What's wrong?" And I said, "It's not really me. I feel sorry for the poor and the meek, because they're going to be absolutely crushed." And then my wife said to me, which is quite a poignant thing, she says, when Labour were in power, and this is a fact I'm sure you know, the gap between rich and poor widened also.
It did.
So I've come to the conclusion that I need to start thinking out of the box. And I conclude from that the problem is an individual human problem, and there's a darkness within all of us, and we seem to want, or majority of people have this need maybe to want to be better than the next door neighbour, and it's coming out in election results the same as this. It's disgusting. I think we are, as a species, we're quite disgusting. That's how I feel.
Well, you just saw some front pages there. There are many causes of this. Rupert Murdoch has picked every British Prime Minister since 1979. He picked Mrs. Thatcher. He decided that Mrs. Thatcher would have to go. He picked John Major. He picked Tony Blair. He picked even Gordon Brown. And he picked David Cameron, not once but twice. The media coverage, which of course is driven by the newspapers, the so-called mainstream broadcasters are all driven by the newspapers, was really quite horrifically biased. We don't have a state-run media in Britain, but we don't need one, because the private media can be guaranteed to support the prevailing orthodoxy, the power, the rich and the powerful. That's one of the reasons. And they played it beautifully, didn't they? They built up UKIP, and then they turned on UKIP, except insofar as UKIP was a threat to Labour in working class areas, in Labour seats, and in the north. And UKIP did far more danger, far more damage, rather, to Labour than they did in the end to the Conservatives. And now that their usefulness has passed, just this very day, the media has ferociously descended upon UKIP in the hope of destroying it, because now that their need is no more, they want to deal with UKIP in advance of the European Union in-out referendum. They built up the SNP. At the same time, the Sun was terrifying English voters with the prospect of a Miliband government dependent on the SNP, the Scottish National Party. Murdoch was supporting the Scottish National Party in Scotland. He called on his readers in Scotland to vote SNP, and he called on his readers in England to vote Tory because of the fear of the SNP. As cynicism goes, that's pretty hard to beat. And of course, the Labour Party's opposition was pitiful. Pitiful in its personnel. Ed Miliband was a thoroughly unconvincing alternative Prime Minister, and insofar as by a scintilla he moved away from the prevailing orthodoxy, it was in such gobbledygook, such a confused and confusing narrative, that he was simply unable to be persuasive, simply unable to persuade. So we do have a very serious difficulty now in this country, compounded by the grotesque electoral system that we employ, which gives the SNP almost 100% of the seats in Scotland on 50% of the vote, gives UKIP 1 MP for 4 million votes, gives the Green Party 1 MP for 1.1 million votes, and gives the Tories a parliamentary majority. Give my regards to your Mrs. Lever. Thanks very much. Isa is in London on the same subject. Isa, welcome to the show.
Hi, George.
Hi there.
Nice talking to you again. I was listening to what you said regarding the election, what happens really. Yeah, we have such a system, so people with 4 million votes getting just 1 MP, and people with less than 4 million getting 58, 56 MP, which is not fair, you know, the whole system here. So anyway,
no, it's unjust.
How to tackle poverty, that's where the main question here today.
Yeah. And
I believe because of what the system we have here and the way it is going, as you said, everyone is working for the rich. So the government is for the rich, and then they will push those who are in poverty to go into more poverty. So the poverty here will be similar to the poverty back in third world countries, because poverty in UK is different, because a lot of people cannot go to holiday in 4 or 5 years, which is the poverty. Just all the time going to work, coming back home. Even they're working, but they don't have that much money.
No.
Just making any job that we have a saying, just on broke. Job is just on broke.
That's a fact.
So,
actually, most of the poor people in Britain are working. They're in poverty, on poverty pay. And the national minimum wage will be ruthlessly suppressed. The growth of 0 hours contracts will grow and grow until it is the dominant form of employment in this country. Public sector pay, except for MPs, will be ruthlessly suppressed. We've had years, 5 years, of freeze, and when inflation comes back, you'll see annually increases in public sector pay less than the rate of inflation. The £30 billion in cuts, which the government already signed up to, and Ed Miliband signed up to it too, the so-called deficit reduction program, will be intensified. There will be privatization of more and more of the National Health Service and many other things that we haven't even thought of. I interviewed a man today who said that the roads in Britain are the next big privatization. So the road network will no longer be owned by the government, owned by the country, but will be owned by private individuals who will have to make money out of it. And they'll have to do that in part by charging tolls. So road tolls are definitely on their way, if my interviewee today is correct. But there will be many, many other privatizations. George Osborne and others in the government have already indicated that there will be £20 billion raised in asset sales, government asset sales. So more and more of the economy will be in the hands of a tiny number of people, and the rest, well, can go to hell. Places like the north of England will be largely abandoned, apart from the talk today about the northern powerhouse around Manchester. The rest of the country can go hang so far as the Tories are concerned. It's a very, very serious situation. Isa in London, thanks very much for the call. We're asking, how much is the United Nations to blame for Yemen's humanitarian crisis? And how can the Tories reduce poverty with their pitifully small mandate and their narrow parliamentary majority? I've given you my answer. Not only are they not going to reduce poverty, they're going to massively increase it. Separ is in London on that very subject. Separ, welcome to the show.
How are you doing? Pleasure to talk to you as always.
Thank you.
I want to point on the point of poverty in Britain before we actually go on to the sensitive subject of Yemen. It's just atrocious. It's getting to a horrendous stage. I mean, unless you're actually living on the streets of, well, London was meant to be the powerhouse of the South, and
yeah. But there are more people, Separ, there are more people living in poverty in a 5-mile radius of the Houses of Parliament than in all of Scotland. London is a tale of two cities. It's a tale of one city which is wealthy, and the few are coining it, but the millions in London are living in dire poverty. Go on, Separ.
Certainly, and it's just heart-wrenching to see, dedicated people who have actually, studied and, dedicated a good decade of their, youth, to educate themselves, and yet, they haven't got the ability to even, stand as an individual within a society for them. So, I mean, if you see it all throughout the society, I mean, it's just upsetting to see a 35-year-old or people still within their 30s, not being able, even with good jobs and good education, not being able to leave home and actually provide a shelter for themselves and actually, to try to establish a family. And to be honest with you, the policies of the Conservatives at the moment, it's just indirect communism, to be honest with you. There is no such a thing as democracy in our country. All it takes is for you to actually come and live in today's Great Britain and actually see how hostile the government are towards its citizens, and the way they're implementing it through the policing force or any other.
And yet they're always telling other people abroad in other countries how they should run their societies.
All you need to do is to can't actually walk in the streets of anywhere within England for half an hour, and you find out how systematically cruel is the policing system in this country, how systematically cruel is the local authorities towards their citizens, and I think we've got another unfortunate 5 years ahead of us.
Well, what will become of the people on disability benefits, for example? The Tories didn't even pretend to deny that they're going to make more and more attacks on the disabled, on people who are mentally ill, on people who simply can't work. And they've appointed, again, Ian Duncan Smith, as I put it on Twitter the other night, to move around the battlefield bayoneting the wounded. That's exactly what he's going to do. He's going to hammer the disabled. He's going to hammer the sick and the ill and the lame. And the other government ministers are going to ram through record-breaking cuts in public expenditure, which will produce more unemployment and more poverty. Now, you wanted to say a word on Yemen also.
Certainly. I mean, it's just unhumane what they're doing in Yemen. It's gone past the stage where you think it's actually politics. It's the way I look at it, it's just genocide, to be honest with you. They are actually trying to wipe out a minority, within a country and suppress them by the means of so little individuals, and I don't think the policy of the West is actually correct towards Yemen. If they actually allow it to go on and continue like this, it will spill out of their hand, just like Iraq did,
yes,
and just like Bahrain did.
Well, it will. It will. And the Yemenis will not allow themselves to be a punch bag. There's 150,000 Saudi soldiers on the border. And the reason is because they know that if there's much more of this, more and more Yemenis will take the fight to Saudi Arabia inside Saudi Arabia. And then we'll have the prospect of another Iraq inside Saudi Arabia. All of this taking place in Iraq and Saudi Arabia on top of the world's reservoir of oil. It's quite extraordinary. Seppa, thanks very much for the call. Some very disturbing pictures and footage there. 200 children have been slaughtered in this. Now, when this was happening in Gaza, and fewer people actually died in Gaza than have died already in Yemen, at least the world was up in arms about it. At least the United Nations was much occupied by it, but not in the case of Yemen. Let's go to Denmark and talk to Baker. Baker in Denmark. Welcome to the show.
Good evening, George.
Good evening.
Regarding UN, if we look in the recent years regarding UN, I don't trust them at all, because you couldn't put it even more right that UN was powerless in just last summer in Riyadh. So why should we trust them now in Yemen? Yemen has just become a disaster. It's a genocide. What is going on? As the former, just the caller hit me, told me before. So,
is it getting any coverage? Is it getting any coverage in your country? Because it isn't getting any here.
It does, but not really, because it's most of distorted facts we're getting about Yemen.
Well, they are trying to spin a false narrative that this is some kind of Sunni-Shia conflict, that it's a conflict against Iran. They say that Iran gave military supplies to the Ansarullah rebels. But in fact, they had no need of Iranian weapons. Yemen is awash with weapons. Everybody in Yemen has a weapon. There's no evidence of any serious military hardware in the hands of the rebels. And far from being a Sunni-Shia conflict, in fact, Saudi Arabia has supported the last two presidents of Yemen, both of whom were Zaidi Shia, exactly the same as the Ansarullah activists are. Well, we're talking the Tories and we're talking Yemen. We're talking poverty and we're talking the United Nations. You're watching Comment with me, George Galloway. I need to take a short 3-minute break for a news bulletin. Don't go away. God willing, I'll still be here when you get back on Comment on Press TV. Welcome back to Comment with me, George Galloway, here on Press TV, still the voice of the voiceless. How can the Tories, with only 37% of the people who voted in the British general election, stop UK poverty? Of course, that's an easy question to answer. They have no intention whatsoever of stopping UK poverty. They're going to severely enhance the levels of poverty in this country. They're going to divide this country. They're almost certainly going to lose half of this country. Look at this graphic. With the grotesque electoral system we have, all these constituencies went blue, even though the Tories had only a few of a majority in Parliament, and the SNP yellow in Scotland. Virtually the entire country, 56 out of 59 Scottish MPs voting for independence, and just one solitary Labour there in Scotland, in South Edinburgh. And you see how sparse is now the red part. And there's the Liberal Democrats, very, very few indeed. The islands, the Orkney and Shetland Islands, not even on the map, and just one or two others. The Liberal Democrats reduced to 8 MPs from, I think, 56 or 57. So it's a catastrophe for the poor. That's my case. The poor are going to be hit by a new blizzard of austerity. The spring might be here in terms of climate, but the economic climate is about to turn very wintry indeed. So, what do you think about the Tories in Britain? What do you think about their election victory? And what do you think it's going to lead to? It's going to lead to misery on many levels. And one of those is the so-called prevent or security agenda. David Cameron gave a speech to the National Security Agency in Britain. Who knew that we even had one of those, a term borrowed in its entirety from the United States? And in it, he openly said, in one of the most astonishing statements I, in a long political life, have ever heard from any British Prime Minister, and I've heard many, namely, that it's not enough to stay within the law, you have to stay within British values. And if you're outside of what David Cameron defines as British values, then you may have to go through the police before you can say a word in protest at the government's programme or the way in which the country is run. The second question is on Yemen, a humanitarian crisis of the gravest possible dimensions, with 4,000 slaughtered. That's more than were slaughtered in the great genocidal spasm that Israel launched on Gaza last summer. More people have now been killed by Saudi Arabian and other bombs coming from the airplanes belonging to the tyrannies, the dictatorships in the Persian Gulf, but being carefully coordinated by the United States, with the United Nations complicit in it. That's my case. Anyway, Mehdi is in London. Let's see what he has to say. Mehdi, welcome.
Hello, sir. Welcome as well to you. I miss you a lot, actually.
Yes, sorry, I've been away for a few weeks, unavoidably detained. Go ahead.
Well, in Yemen, about 20 years ago, I was telling everybody what is the plan of the United States and United Europe is all about. Actually, the plan is to make fire on the Middle East. And then there's going to be a shortage of plenty of many food in that area. But as you can see, democracy, they're going to stop democracy in the homeland, like in Britain, in America. No longer is democracy. It's just the law has come is against, as you were saying it, as long as it's against Britain or United States or Germany or France, we're going to stop you. So they are not going to even care about democracy as well anymore.
Well, I think that's right. It's a demonocracy, a shamocracy, a hypocrisy, rather than a democracy. And that was true before David Cameron got back in again with a parliamentary majority, with not even the pusillanimous Liberal Democrats even to say boo in the cabinet room, an entirely Tory government with draconian plans, including on suppressing democracy and freedom of speech in our own country, all in the name of British values, of course. But abroad, there'll be more and more scenes like this. It's beginning to look like their project is for the division, the permanent division, the reconfiguration of the region. It's beginning to look like they want to divide Syria, to divide Iraq, and to divide Yemen. And so instead of the useless 23 Arab countries, we'll have small emirates fighting each other. If it goes perfectly to plan, then you can sell weapons to both sides. Mehdi, thanks for that call, and I'm sorry that you missed me, and I'm glad to be back. I hope the rest of the audience is too. Here's Nasser in London on Yemen. Nasser, welcome.
Thank you very much, George. Good evening.
Good evening.
Well, first to start is when you say United Nations, what's the role of United Nations? They don't play their roles in just this way. It happened in Palestine, where we had many thousands died. There's no just condemnation, no actions. It happened in Iraq. It happened in Egypt. I mean, how come you recognize a legitimate president and you don't recognize legitimate president? And he was welcomed by those so-called the puppet of, the rulers, those who now. I'm honestly, when you said it's a war between the Shia and the Sunni, this is new. This is something they're trying to divert people from, the real cause, which is Palestine, which is Egypt, which is on and on and on. Now they're trying to get Iran by, sort of like Iran. They're trying to help people there, humanitarian aid. Now, why they stop them?
Well, imagine,
so if they were
imagine the scandal there would have been if, for example, in the recent disaster in Nepal, where thousands have been affected, hundreds of thousands have been affected. Imagine someone sending aid to Nepal, being threatened with being shot out of the sky, ships turned back, aid blocked. Can you imagine the scandal that there would be if any power had sought to do that? And yet that's exactly, pardon me, what Saudi Arabia is doing vis-a-vis Yemen. Exactly that.
Well, Nepal, they have... Nepal... Hello?
Yes, go on.
Nepal, they have... there is no interest in Nepal. They wouldn't do it. Well, they should have... When they had Kosovo, if you remember, when they had trouble in Balkan thing, the whole world, went to help. Now, we have people dying every day, especially in Palestine, in Gaza. They are living like in the biggest, this is what I used to say, what is the biggest prison on earth? It's Gaza. You know, people, they are 1.8 people.
1.8 million, yeah.
And they live in like there is no medical help, there is no.
Well, they're living lives in a place that is unfit for human habitation. And of course, the grim irony is that Israeli rescue teams are digging people out of the rubble in Nepal and sent thousands to their deaths under the rubble in Gaza. Thanks for that call, Nasser, I beg your pardon. Yahya is in Saudi Arabia. We definitely want to hear from him. Yahya, welcome to the show.
Yeah, well, thank you very much, George. I just want, maybe I'm a bit different from you. Maybe you didn't agree with me for what I said.
Okay.
But Saudi Arabia has a little bit of problems in Yemen, and I really agree this problem cannot be solved in this manner. But what we're doing now, we think it's correct. We think it's defending our country, and we will see a new future, including Yemen, Syria, Lebanon as well. So that's what I think myself.
Well, let me just test that thesis, Yahya, if I may. You say we believe. We've no way of knowing what the population of Saudi Arabia believes, of course, because there's no freedom or liberty or democracy of any kind. There's no freedom of assembly, there's no freedom of the media, there's no elections, there's no voting. A brand new set of tyrants, juvenile tyrants at that, made the decision for you. You had no say in that decision. But secondly, the mere assertion that you're going to have a new future is, of course, very far from the reality. You may say that. I'm here to tell you that what your country is doing in Saudi Arabia is going to blow back, not just on you, but on many other people in the region, and is going to fan the flames that are already consuming the region, in which tens, hundreds of thousands of people have lost their lives. 1 million already lost their life in Iraq, and your country was culpable in that. Your country gave every support to the US and British invasion and occupation of Iraq. Now Iraq is in the hands of not just Al-Qaeda, but in the hands of ISIS. 1/3 of it is controlled by ISIS. Your country has been deeply involved in the destruction of Syria, and now 1/3 of Syria is in the hands of ISIS. Do you think that they're going to respect your borders, Yahya, or do you think they're coming to get your tyrants too?
No, I think you don't see the word by yourself. We look at it by a word, by the eye of the word, but you look at it yourself by the eye of Iran only.
No, I've got nothing to do with that. Don't give me that. Yahya, don't give me that. That's just a foolish smear. What I'm saying to you now, on Press TV, I will say on Russian TV, on Arab TV, and I was saying long before I worked on any TV. So I'm not an agent of anybody. You, on the other hand, may well be, because you're phoning up, parroting the line of your own tyranny, your own dictatorship. You claim that your government is acting on behalf of your people, but your people have no say whatsoever in any form in what your government does. Now, I gave you a number of substantive points. Why don't you answer those points instead of insulting and smearing me? Never mind the messenger. Hate me, if you like. Answer the points that I just made. Why don't you?
Well, you didn't let me to talk. That's for a start. You did not let me to talk.
No,
that's
talk.
For a start. I'm
Go
telling
on.
you,
the floor is yours.
Okay, I'm going in now. We are happy and we are supporting our government.
How do we know you're happy?
The new generation.
Yeah. How do we know you're happy?
We are behind them, whatever they do, especially the young government now. During, I have been an opposite. I used to oppose the government rules or the government movements. That's about 15 years ago. But now I totally agree with them of what they do.
What happened in between, Yahya?
In Syria and in Lebanon as well. They should. But don't look at it by your eye, the Iranian eyes.
I don't have an Iranian eye.
But
listen.
No,
I have been
watching you, George.
Listen,
come on.
No, shut up for a minute. I have been with the Arabs for 40 years. I have been in Iran, I think twice, maybe 3 times in my entire life. I don't know personally more than 6 or 8 Iranians. What I'm saying to you is what I believe. It has nothing to do with Iran. And I say it in writing, in Parliament, on the streets, on Russian TV, on any TV, because that's what I believe. Now, I'm asking you for the second time, why don't you answer the points that I made? You helped to destroy Iraq. You broke it into 100 pieces, you and your American friends. Now ISIS are on the march. You helped to destroy Syria into 100 pieces. Now ISIS are on the march. I ask you again, do you think ISIS are going to draw a line at so-called Saudi Arabia, or are they coming for your tyrants too? Answer that.
Well, okay, wait, George, because I cannot hear you very well. But I am telling you, no, we are looking after the security of our country, and what we're doing now is the right way to do it, because we have tolerated Iran and Iran groups for the last 25 years, including pumping in Mecca, including killing people, including supporting Yemen, supporting Hezbollah, supporting Assad against us. No, we have to make our border safe, and we will make it. We have the money and we have the brains to do it. But what I am saying in here that really is wrong, what you're doing is absolutely wrong, that you accusing Saudi Arabia of a lot of things, which is not right. I live in Saudi Arabia.
What is it that's not right? Yahya, did you or did you not assist the United States and Britain to destroy Iraq? Yes or no?
Yes.
Exactly. And now you want to complain about Iran after you've destroyed Iraq? Are you assisting the United States, Britain and France, ISIS and Al-Qaeda, the heart eaters, to destroy Syria? Yes or no?
No. Well, wait, George. Well, I'm telling you no. But I'm telling you yes. But why? Because we have to make our country very well secured. And the involvement of Iran started it. And now
what did Iraq do? What did Iraq do to you? To deserve?
Well, they have the Houthi in the south. They have Bashar Assad in the north. And we have Hezbollah in there.
Yeah.
What is Iran to do in Arab countries?
What did Iraq do to Saudi Arabia to make you participate in the destruction of Iraq? What?
Yeah, they invaded Kuwait.
They invaded Kuwait in 1989. They invaded Kuwait. You supported the destruction of Iraq in 2003. 13 years after they left Kuwait. Why did you do that?
Well, you are okay. Well, I think you have a big brain. In politics, it doesn't work within 24 hours. If you invade a country in 1990, you will pay the price over the next 30 years.
Okay,
you don't invade a country.
Okay, you actually did agree with me, as you'll find on the tape, that Saudi Arabia should not have helped to destroy Iraq. but now you're seeking to justify it. I hope they still pay you after that unfortunate slip of yours. Sean is in California Bay. How wonderful that sounds. Sean, welcome to the show.
Great. Thank you for having me, George.
You're welcome. Go ahead.
Yeah, I just wanted to talk about the second question in regards to the United Nations. If we were to look at it from a historical perspective, we'd see that the UN, since its conception, has failed to uphold peace and stability, especially in the region of the Middle East. And ultimately, if we look at the Security Council, which is comprised of 5 nations, let's say we were to look at the issue of Palestinian statehood, if all of the countries of the General Assembly and 4 of the countries of the Security Council vote for Palestinian statehood, the United States can ultimately reject it flat out.
Can and will.
The United Nations, sorry?
Can and will, probably.
Definitely, yes. So in regards to Yemen, it's certainly a lot of these countries in the Security Council which are preventing the humanitarian aid. Now, in regards to the previous speaker, looking at it from as a student of history, if we were to look at the rise of Wahhabism in Saudi Arabia, we were to see that they're the reason for all of these groups, for example, Boko Haram, ISIS, al-Nusra, Taliban, al-Shabaab in Somalia. All of these groups ultimately have the same ideology as Saudi Arabia. And that is based off of Takfiri, Salafi, Wahhabi ideology. And they're ultimately the cause for all of the instability. Now, when the previous caller was accusing Iran of causing turmoil in the Middle East, Iran is actually the only country in the region that is stable. If we were to look at Syria right now, if we were to look at Iraq,
Syria,
Yemen,
Iraq, Saudi
Libya,
Arabia, Bahrain, Yemen.
Exactly. All of these countries,
Egypt,
they're all in turmoil.
We could go on. But I've just got to make one point before I take the last call from Africa, Sean, and it's this. Please don't imagine for 1 minute that the rulers of Saudi Arabia are really Salafi or are really Wahhabi. Because I could take you down to the West End of London right now, where you'll find them at the roulette tables just before they go off to the bordellos. So don't ever imagine that the good people of Saudi Arabia are ruled by religious people. They're ruled by hypocrites. The last call is Bobby in Botswana. Bobby, welcome to the show.
George, how are you?
By the grace of God, I'm good. Go ahead.
Yeah, it's about humanitarian into... Hello?
Yes, go on. You're on the air.
Yeah. George, I don't know, because if there's any way any other person or any other country can dismantle the UN.
No.
So the UN doesn't seem to be saving any other country except certain countries. You could imagine, more especially I'll mention Iran. If it was Iran that has attacked any other country, the whole UN will be talking about it.
No,
so
nobody can disband the UN, and only the UN Security Council can reform itself. And the veto-wielding members of the Security Council, the permanent 5, who have those veto powers only because they possess the same nuclear weapons that they're ready to invade and kill others to stop them from developing them. Nobody can change the UN. What we have to do is to begin to build up our own institutions of right-thinking countries and right-thinking people. It's not beyond us. The non-aligned movement, starting in Bandung in Indonesia, more than half a century ago, began that process, and it needs to happen again. Russia and China, the Arab countries, the African countries, all of them have to come together. You can continue the discussion on Twitter at comment_PressTV. Until next week, God willing, it's been marvelous.
Hello, if you just comment your name and the place you left that number, and just make sure that your television volume's set to 0. So 003. Spell your name for me? Yeah, I know. You directly put through the phone number.